Humanity was losing the war. The skies above Earth's last city burned orange, filled with smoke and alien warships. Commander Ethan Price stood on the balcony of the battered headquarters, watching the world he loved fall apart. The alien Drakari were everywhere, their soldiers marching in silver armor through the ruined streets. Ethan wiped dust from his face. He had fought in this war for 5 years. He had seen friends lost, cities destroyed, hope fading day by day. Now he was running out of time and ideas. Every other general had given up. Only Ethan was still trying to find a way to save his people. Inside the war room, his team waited for him. Maps and screens showed red lines. Drakari troops closing in from every direction. The city's defense systems were almost gone. "We have 12 hours, maybe less," his advisor whispered. "If we fight, we lose everything." Ethan looked around. His people were tired, hungry, and scared. But giving up was not an option. "We need something they don't expect," he said. "Something bigger than any weapon." Suddenly, an idea sparked in his mind, a memory of a report from months ago. The Drakari queen, Syraxia, was different from her generals. She was young for a ruler, and sometimes she spoke of peace. But her council never listened. Maybe, just maybe, she wanted a way out as much as he did. "What if we offer them something new?" Ethan said aloud. His team stared, confused. "Like what?" someone asked. Ethan smiled for the first time in days. "A union. Not just a treaty, but a symbol. A marriage. If I marry the queen, our people will have to accept peace. The war can end, not by force, but by hope." It sounded crazy. Maybe it was, but it was their last chance. Within hours, Ethan sent a message to the Drakari flagship, asking for an urgent meeting with Queen Syraxia. He offered himself as a partner in a marriage that would join two worlds. At first, the Drakari didn't answer. The hours dragged on, and hope faded. The city's defenders waited, ready for the final attack. But then, late at night, a silver Drakari shuttle landed outside headquarters. Ethan watched as Queen Syraxia stepped out, surrounded by her guards. She was taller than any human, her eyes a deep violet, her face calm but curious. "Commander Price," she said in perfect English, "do you really wish to end this war with a marriage?" Ethan nodded. "It is the only way to save both our peoples. I offer peace, if you will accept me as your partner." The queen studied him for a long moment. Her people were tired too. Maybe she saw hope in this mad idea. Finally, she gave a small, almost hidden smile. "Very well, human. Let us see if love, or at least a clever alliance, can do what war could not." And with that, the future of two worlds changed forever. The room was silent except for the soft humming of the Drakari shuttle. Commander Ethan Price sat across from Queen Syraxia at a long metal table. Between them, 2 alien guards and 2 human officers stood watch, their hands never far from their weapons. Ethan tried not to stare at the queen. She was impressive, tall, graceful, dressed in shining robes that changed color in the light. Her eyes were calm but sharp, as if she could see through any lie. He remembered all the stories he'd heard about her. A ruler who never cried, a leader who never forgave weakness. Yet now, she was considering the strangest offer in history. "Why should I trust you, Commander?" Syraxia asked, her voice soft but strong. "Your people have attacked my worlds. They killed my brother in battle. Why should I join myself to you, even in a fake marriage?" Ethan answered honestly. "Because we are both tired. My people are dying. Your people are hurting too. This war helps no one now. I think you know that, even if your council does not." Syraxia leaned back, thinking. She glanced at her advisors, who looked uncomfortable but said nothing. At last, she spoke. "If we do this, it is for the cameras, for the crowds. You will play the loving husband, and I will act as your devoted wife. But after peace is signed, we go our separate ways. Is this your plan?" Ethan nodded, his heart pounding. Yes, your majesty. We act so the people can believe in peace. Cyrexia gave a slow nod. Then we have conditions. First, this marriage must be official in the eyes of both our worlds. There will be a ceremony with witnesses. Second, you will promise never to betray me or my people. If you do, there will be consequences. Ethan met her gaze. Agreed. And in return, you must promise the same. No hidden armies, no secret attacks. Cyrexia's lips curled into a thin smile. Agreed, Commander. They stood, and the room seemed to breathe again. The two leaders shook hands, watched by nervous soldiers. For a moment, Ethan felt the weight of history pressing down. He wondered if he was making a terrible mistake, or saving billions of lives. News spread quickly. Drakari and human reporters filled the streets, sharing the shocking story. The war would end not with destruction, but with a royal marriage. Some people cheered, hoping for peace. Others shouted, calling Ethan a traitor or Cyrexia a fool. Preparations began at once. Dresses and suits were chosen, and a great hall was decorated with both human and Drakari symbols. All around the city, soldiers lowered their weapons, unsure what to think. Peace felt strange, almost unreal. That night, alone in his room, Ethan looked at his reflection. He hardly recognized the tired man staring back. Tomorrow, he would marry an alien queen, fake or not. Could he really fool the world? Could he even fool himself? But there was no turning back. For better or worse, history had taken a new path. The wedding day arrived, and the world watched with wide eyes. In the center of the great hall, Ethan stood in a sharp black suit, feeling strange and out of place. Human and Drakari flags hung side by side above the stage. Reporters, soldiers, and important leaders filled the seats, waiting for the moment that might change history. Queen Cyrexia entered the hall, moving with slow, steady steps. Her gown shone like liquid silver, flowing behind her like water. She looked calm, but Ethan noticed her hands were tight at her sides. Even a queen could feel nervous, he thought. The ceremony began. Both a human priest and a Drakari elder read words about peace and unity. Cameras flashed from every corner. Ethan and Cyrexia stood close together, their faces serious. When it was time to say their vows, Ethan spoke first. I promise to stand by your side for peace and to protect both our peoples as long as we wear these rings, he said, his voice strong. Cyrexia answered, her words smooth but careful. I vow to join my fate with yours, for the sake of our worlds, and to seek peace instead of war. Their hands met. The rings were placed, one gold, one black stone. For a moment, it almost felt real. A small cheer rose from the crowd, mixed with shouts and whispers. Some people believed in the union. Others watched with cold, angry eyes. But no one could ignore the power of the moment. The cameras caught every second, sending hope and shock across two planets. After the ceremony, Ethan and Cyrexia sat together at a long table for the celebration feast. They smiled for the cameras, raising glasses of sparkling blue Drakari drink. Behind their polite faces, they spoke quietly. Are you ready for this act? Cyrexia asked without looking at Ethan. Her lips never stopped smiling for the crowd. I'm a quick learner, Ethan answered, forcing a grin. And I've played harder roles before. Cyrexia's eyes flickered with amusement. Let us hope our enemies believe it. They moved through the night like dancers in a play. They greeted officials, accepted gifts, and even shared a slow dance, just once, for tradition. To outsiders, they looked like a true couple. But when the music faded and the guests began to leave, Ethan and Cyrexia finally shared a private moment in a quiet corner. You did well, Cyrexia said, her voice low. So did you, Ethan replied. Maybe too well. For the first time, she smiled a real tired smile. If only peace was as easy as wearing rings. Ethan nodded. He felt the heavy eyes of guards and politicians all around. Their marriage was just starting, but it was already a burden. Still, as he looked at the queen beside him, he felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, with enough trust and luck, two enemies could really become allies. After the wedding, the world seemed to hold its breath. All over the city, human and Drakari soldiers stepped away from their guns. News screens showed pictures of Ethan and Syraxia side by side, smiling for peace. Across the two worlds, people cheered, hugged each other, or simply cried, letting out years of fear and pain. Official papers were signed the next morning. Ethan and Syraxia stood before their councils and the cameras, making their promises real. The war, which had lasted 5 long years, was finally over. But ending a war was not as simple as saying words. Some people celebrated the new peace, hoping for a better future. Shops opened for the first time in months. Children played outside without running from gunfire. At night, fireworks lit up the sky, a rare sign of hope. But in the shadows, old hatreds did not die so easily. Among the Drakari, some nobles whispered that their queen had betrayed her own kind by trusting a human. They met in secret rooms, angry and afraid of losing their power. They called Syraxia weak and plotted ways to take control. On the human side, certain generals refused to trust the Drakari. "It's a trick," they said. "The queen is just waiting for the right time to attack us again." Some soldiers even refused to leave their posts, holding tight to their rifles in the cold night. Ethan noticed the tension. Even inside the palace, he saw suspicious faces and heard harsh words behind his back. When he walked through the halls, some humans refused to salute. Some Drakari guards turned their eyes away, cold and silent. One night, Ethan met Syraxia in the palace garden. The flowers there were a mix of Earth's roses and Drakari's blue lantern blooms, glowing softly in the dark. The queen's face was troubled. "Peace is harder than war," Syraxia said quietly. Ethan nodded. "We ended the fighting, but not the anger." She looked at him, searching his eyes. "Do you trust me, Commander?" Ethan paused. It was not an easy question. He thought of all the losses, all the lies of war. But he saw the tired honesty in her face and chose to trust. "Yes," he said, "I trust you. We have to trust each other, or this will all fall apart." Syraxia smiled, just a little. "Then we stand together, for both our peoples, even if they doubt us." They returned to the palace side by side, ready to face whatever came next. In the shadows behind them, a figure watched and whispered into a hidden communicator. Plans were already in motion. Not everyone wanted peace, and for Ethan and Syraxia, the hardest battles were still ahead. Days passed after the wedding, but true peace felt like a dream. There were celebrations in the streets, but also whispers behind closed doors. Commander Ethan Price could feel the tension wherever he went. The palace was busy during the day, full of meetings and handshakes, but at night, the halls seemed colder and more dangerous. One evening, Ethan was working late in his office when his advisor, Captain Mira, rushed in with fear in her eyes. "Sir, there's been an explosion at the West Supply Depot," she said. "It looks like sabotage." Ethan stood up quickly. "Casualties. 3 Drakari guards hurt, no one killed," Mira replied. "But the Drakari generals are furious. They think it was a human attack." Ethan's heart sank. "It wasn't us," he said quietly. But he knew that didn't matter. Fear could make anyone believe a lie. He hurried to the scene with Queen Syraxia. The depot was filled with smoke, and Drakari soldiers glared at Ethan as he arrived. Their commander pointed at him and shouted, "You said there would be peace. This is your answer." Syraxia raised her hand, commanding silence. "No one will make accusations without proof," she said. Her voice was calm, but Ethan saw the doubt in her eyes. For the first time, he wondered if even Syraxia could truly trust him. Later, in a private meeting, Ethan and Syraxia sat across from each other. The air was heavy with tension. "Do you believe me?" Ethan asked. "My people didn't do this." Syraxia studied his face. I want to believe you, Ethan, but my council is demanding answers. Some already want to break the peace. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the world. This could be a trick. Someone wants us to fight again. They want to break us apart. Syrexia nodded. There are those among my people who hate this peace. I know you have enemies on your side as well. We must find the truth together. They agreed to launch a secret investigation. Ethan called on Mira and his most loyal officers. Syrexia trusted only a few close Drakari. Together, they began to search for clues, looking through security footage and talking to witnesses. At first, they found nothing. But after hours of work, Mira discovered something strange. A human soldier seen in the restricted area before the explosion, but the face was hidden by a mask. Later, a Drakari guard remembered a strange accent when someone gave him orders that night. It's someone trying to make us blame each other, Ethan said. Syrexia looked at him with a new respect. We are targets. If we fail, the war will start again. They made a silent promise to watch each other's backs. The enemy was in the shadows, working to destroy everything they had built. As the night grew deeper, Ethan realized that peace was not just about words or promises. It was a battle of its own, a battle he and Syrexia had to fight together, or lose everything. The next morning, Ethan and Syrexia met in a quiet chamber away from the palace crowd. Their secret team had discovered little, but they refused to give up. Together, they planned to visit the ruins near the city, once a human hospital, now just broken walls, since the last big battle. That place was close to the supply depot where the explosion happened. They left at dawn, using an unmarked vehicle and taking only their most trusted guards. The city was quiet, almost peaceful, but Ethan noticed how people stared as the human commander and Drakari queen moved side by side. Some faces showed hope, others cold anger. The hospital ruins were silent. As Ethan and Syrexia walked inside, the ground crunched under their boots. Old signs and broken beds told stories of pain and bravery. For a moment, both leaders felt the weight of war press down. Do you know, Syrexia said, touching a shattered wall, my mother was a doctor before she was queen. She hated war. Ethan looked at her with surprise. My mother was a nurse. She wanted me to build things, not destroy them. They shared a rare, quiet smile, two enemies with more in common than either had guessed. Suddenly, Mira's voice came over the radio. We found something. There are tracks behind the building. Looks like someone met with a Drakari supply truck in secret last night. Ethan and Syrexia hurried outside, following the trail into the tall grass. There, hidden beneath old debris, they found a small bag. Inside were fake Drakari army badges and a device for changing voices, a tool for disguises. Someone is pretending to be both human and Drakari, Ethan said, anger rising in his chest. They want us to blame each other, start fighting again. Syrexia nodded. This is the proof we need, but it won't be easy to show everyone. The conspirators are clever. A shout rang out. One of their guards had spotted movement. Suddenly, masked figures appeared, weapons drawn. Ethan and Syrexia ducked behind a wall as laser blasts flashed above their heads. Stay close, Ethan shouted, pulling Syrexia to safety. Together, they fought back, working as a team, Ethan's sharp aim and Syrexia's quick commands keeping them alive. After a short, fierce battle, the attackers ran off, leaving one wounded behind. The team quickly captured him. Syrexia knelt by the prisoner, her face cold. Who sent you? She demanded. The wounded man spat on the ground. You will never have peace. War is the only answer. Ethan's jaw tightened. Not for us, he said quietly. They returned to the palace, tired but alive. Now they had proof of the sabotage and the first real trust between them. For the first time, Ethan felt that Syrexia was not just a partner in a fake marriage, but a true ally. But he also knew this was only the beginning. The enemies of peace were still out there, waiting in the shadows. The palace was more tense than ever after the attack at the ruins. Commander Ethan Price and Queen Syraxia brought back the proof of sabotage, a bag of fake badges, the voice device, and the captured attacker. But even this evidence was not enough for everyone. In the Great Hall, both councils gathered. Human generals and Dracari nobles sat in a circle, their faces hard and full of doubt. Ethan stood before them, holding up the bag. Someone is trying to trick us. They want to break our alliance and start the war again. This is not the work of my people or the Queen's loyal followers. It's the work of traitors from both sides. Some of the council members shouted in anger. Lies, barked a Dracari noble, slamming his fist on the table. You want us to trust the enemy? Impossible. Ethan's face was calm, but inside he felt the pressure building. Then Syraxia spoke, her voice strong and clear. We have a prisoner who can speak for himself. Bring him. Guards led in the wounded attacker. He looked scared but defiant. Syraxia leaned forward, her violet eyes cold. Tell them who sent you. At first, the prisoner refused to talk, but when Syraxia promised safety for his family, he broke down. His story shocked the whole room. He named a secret group, a mix of angry Dracari generals and human officers, who met in the city's old tunnels. They hated the peace and wanted to kill both Ethan and Syraxia during the coming peace summit. Ethan turned to the councils. Now you see, this is not just about old hatreds. It's a true conspiracy. If we don't stop them, there will be no peace, only more war. A heavy silence fell. For the first time, even the doubters looked worried. The summit was only 2 days away. All the important leaders would be in one place. If the attack succeeded, it would destroy everything Ethan and Syraxia had built. That night, Ethan and Syraxia planned together. We cannot cancel the summit, Syraxia said, or our enemies will win by fear. We have to face them, Ethan agreed. We'll set a trap. We'll act as if we know nothing and let them come to us. The day of the summit arrived. The grand hall was filled with light and hope, but also nervous glances and tight security. As Ethan and Syraxia entered, pretending to smile, their guards spread through the crowd, searching for any sign of danger. Suddenly, masked conspirators rushed the stage, weapons raised. Chaos exploded, but Ethan and Syraxia stood back to back, fighting together. The loyal guards moved fast, capturing the attackers before they could hurt anyone. As the dust cleared, Ethan looked at Syraxia. She nodded, proud and relieved. Together, they had defeated the real enemy, not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts of their people. Now, true peace seemed possible, but the world was watching to see what would happen next. The failed attack at the peace summit was all over the news. For the first time since the wedding, the people of both worlds began to believe that peace might truly last. Videos of Ethan and Syraxia fighting side by side went viral. Two enemies now standing as partners. But as the palace settled into an uneasy calm, a new question began to rise. What would happen to the royal marriage? The world thought it was real, but only a few people knew the truth. The agreement had always been for show, to end the war and build hope. Now, with the conspirators caught and peace secured, Ethan and Syraxia were free to end their act. That evening, the royal council called a meeting. Human and Dracari leaders gathered in the grand hall, curious about what would happen next. Queen Syraxia stood, tall and calm. She looked at Ethan, her eyes deep and thoughtful. Our agreement has reached its end. We promised each other only as long as our people needed hope. Ethan nodded, his heart strangely heavy. The world is watching. We did what we had to do. Syraxia turned to the crowd. But peace is fragile. The wounds of war do not heal in a day. What message do we send if we go our separate ways now? The hall grew quiet. People leaned forward, waiting for the queen's next words. Syraxia raised her hand and spoke in the ancient Dracari language. The Dracari gasped. She was using words of old tradition, a language only used for the most important promises. Then she spoke in English, her voice strong. I demand a new bond, a lifelong commitment, not just for peace, but for unity. Commander Ethan, will you join your future with mine? For all our people, not just for show, but for real. The room was shocked. Even Ethan stood speechless, his mind racing. This was not what they had agreed. The world had expected a peaceful end, a polite goodbye. But Syraxia was asking for something far deeper, a real partnership, not just in politics, but in life. For a long moment, Ethan didn't answer. He thought of all they had survived. The war, the betrayal, the struggle to build trust. He thought of the quiet moments, the tired smiles, the way Syraxia's laughter sounded in the garden, the respect in her eyes. He realized he no longer saw her as an enemy, or even as a stranger. Somewhere along the way, she had become important to him, not just as a partner in peace, but as someone he wanted to trust. Syraxia waited, her head held high. But Ethan could see the hope and the fear in her eyes. The choice was his now. Was he willing to make this alliance real? Not just for their worlds, but for themselves. The hall was silent, holding its breath, as Ethan prepared to answer. For the first time, Ethan felt unsure of himself. In front of the grand hall, with both human and Drakari leaders watching, he had to make the most important decision of his life. The fake marriage had ended the war. The peace they created was real, but Syraxia's new demand was something he hadn't expected. Ethan looked at Syraxia. She stood proud and strong, but he could see the emotion behind her calm mask. This was no longer about politics or the cameras. It was about trust, about hope, and maybe even about something more. The council waited. Some whispered to each other, wondering what Ethan would choose. A few doubters hoped he would refuse, that the alliance would end so old fears could return. But others, those tired of war, watched with hope in their eyes. Ethan remembered the night he first saw Syraxia step out of her ship, ready to talk about peace. He remembered how hard it had been to trust, and how dangerous every day had felt. But now, after all they had faced together, the danger, the betrayal, the moments when their lives hung by a thread, he knew they had built something strong. He turned to Syraxia and spoke simply. When we started this, I thought it was just a play. Now I know it was the first step to something real. I accept your offer, not because I have to, but because I want to. A quiet gasp ran through the hall. Syraxia smiled, a real bright smile that lit up her whole face. She stepped forward and took Ethan's hands in hers. Then let us show our people what true unity means. The two leaders stood together, side by side, as the council members finally began to clap. First, only a few, then more, until the hall echoed with applause. Old enemies cheered together, some even wiped away tears. But even with the joy, Ethan knew this was just another beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Angry nobles, stubborn generals, people afraid of change. But now, Ethan and Syraxia would face those challenges as a true team, bound not just by a contract, but by respect and growing affection. That night, after the council ended, Ethan and Syraxia walked in the palace gardens. The glowing flowers lit their path with soft light. Are you afraid? Syraxia asked, her voice gentle. Ethan smiled. A little, but not as much as I would be without you. She squeezed his hand. We may not know what tomorrow will bring, but we'll face it together. The stars above seemed brighter, as if even the universe wanted this peace to last. Ethan felt lighter than he had in years. For the first time, the war was truly behind him. Ahead was a future he had never dared to dream of, a future with hope, trust, and perhaps even love. As they stood together under the stars, Ethan knew he had made the right choice. The news of Ethan and Syraxia's true marriage spread quickly across both worlds. Everywhere, people gathered in homes, markets and parks to watch the announcement on their screens. Many could hardly believe it. What began as a fake marriage for peace was now a real bond for life. In the palace, a new ceremony was planned. This time, not for show, but from the heart. The hall was decorated with the colors of both civilizations, the deep blue and silver of the Dracarys, and the green and gold of Earth. People from all backgrounds filled the seats, waiting to witness history. Ethan stood at the front, dressed simply but proudly. He no longer felt out of place. He was part of something bigger now. Cyrexia entered, not with royal guards or heavy armor, but as herself, a queen, a leader, and now a partner by choice. The ceremony was quiet but powerful. There were no reporters, only family, friends, and the council. This time, Ethan and Cyrexia spoke their own vows, with no script or politics. Ethan took Cyrexia's hand. "I promise to stand by you, not just as a symbol, but as a real partner. I will fight for our peace, protect our future, and honor the trust we've built." Cyrexia looked into his eyes, her voice steady and full of warmth. "I promise to share my life with you, to work side by side, and to face every challenge together. I will not hide my heart or my hopes from you. We are stronger together." The hall was silent for a moment, then filled with applause. The new bond was sealed, not just in words, but in the belief of everyone watching. After the ceremony, Ethan and Cyrexia walked out to the palace balcony. Below, crowds of humans and Dracarys cheered as one. No one cared about their differences anymore. Instead, people waved banners of unity. Families of both kinds hugged, and hope finally felt real. Some challenges remained, of course. There were still a few who whispered against the marriage, who feared change. But their voices were smaller now, lost in the wave of joy and relief that swept through the city. In the days that followed, Ethan and Cyrexia worked together to rebuild broken homes, reopen schools, and create teams of humans and Dracarys to solve problems side by side. Children from both worlds played in the parks, no longer afraid. One evening, as the sun set over the peaceful city, Ethan and Cyrexia stood in the garden where they had once spoken of fear and doubt. Now they laughed together, making plans for the future, plans for peace, for families, for exploring the stars as one people. Their story was no longer just about war or a fake alliance. It was about courage, forgiveness, and the power of trust. Ethan and Cyrexia had proven that even the deepest wounds could heal, and that sometimes the bravest thing was to give your heart and your future to hope.